Hey everybody, I'm Michael, I'm alcoholic. Welcome to the workshop. Before we begin, let's take a moment of silence and pray a serenity prayer. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. So just because it's the first week, maybe the first couple weeks, we'll go around and introduce ourselves if you don't mind. Once again, I'm Mike, I'm an alcoholic. Is that everyone? Okay, just a quick, let me just kind of get a feel of the room. How many people in here who in here has not worked the steps? Let's show them high so I can see now. Okay, good, okay. How many people in here have been sober over a year? So that's probably the majority of the people, okay. Thank you. So I'm no professor of the big book or anything like that, but I do have some experience with it. And luckily, my sobriety date is February 1st, 2009, so I just celebrated 17 years last week or something like that. Yeah. I was fortunate enough in my sobriety to fall in line with a group of big book thumpers. And I know that when I first came to AA, before I fell in line, I would come to AA, and it's been said before that I'd be in the treatment center or I'd be, on probation or court paper, and I'd come to meetings with whoever I could come to meetings with. And then the people I was around, and it seems to be more of a trending kind of a topic, they'd say, stay away from Bob and Sue and Joe and them. He's a big book thumper. And you're like, oh shit, what's that? It don't sound good to me, right? And so consequently, what would happen would be I'd get this bad idea of a big book thumper, and in my mind I thought it was a bad thing. And consequently I stayed sick, and I never got sober, and I couldn't put together any sober time, and I only had somebody's interpretation of the program versus what we all have. We all have big books, and the program is in the big book described masterly. And it doesn't need much help from me or anybody else. I don't want to change anything I don't want to take anything away from it or leave anything out. But going through the steps with the people who understood and have experience with the big book revolutionarily changed my life. Like revolutionarily. In and out of detoxes and jails and prisons and, trying to do all these different things to get and stay sober and come to Alcoholics Anonymous several times. That's most people's story to some degree. You come here once or twice and until you're really licked, you're not really willing to do anything. But I believed that the program Alcoholics Anonymous didn't have any power and it didn't have a solution for me. And I was easily able to separate myself from everybody in the room because I would think one of two things. One of two things I would think was, oh, I'm way worse than them. I did way worse things than they did. And I would not be able to identify, or I would do the exact opposite and I would say, oh, they're way worse than me. They're way worse than me. So I left myself excluded every time I did that, but that has a lot to do with the information that I was being dealt. And to some degree, I don't know that necessarily the sponsors that I had at the time, I don't believe that they meant me no harm. I think they simply just didn't know. And so we talked about this a little bit before the workshop. This evening, I talked to a couple guys, or maybe some gals, that to some degree, especially with the overwhelming amount of people who's been sober over a year, have a little bit of sobriety, the idea behind this workshop will be to help you to be a better sponsor. And it's vitally important. And so one of Bill Wilson's famous quotes is, our chief responsibility as members of Alcoholics Anonymous, our chief responsibility is an adequate presentation of the big book. And so you can ask yourself that question, like how adequate of a big book representative are you? Would you like to be better? Is there more to learn? Is there more that I haven't experienced yet? And maybe it's yes. Maybe some of you have said, I've been a big book thumper since day one. I'm all in. That's why I'm here, because I want to do more, and that's great. Or maybe you're been through the steps and you've been sober a little while and you're getting weird again. Right? And when I say getting weird, I know I'm not talking to foreigners in here. When we get weird, we know what we mean. Getting strange, getting weird. We're going back to applying them things that we used to do, almost in our, whether we knew it or not, when we were trying to take our first step, we were trying to look for things that would fill the blank. If I could just get this job and make this amount of money, I'll be okay. And then you get the job, and then you're like, they don't respect me. Right? They're treating me poorly. They don't know what they're doing. And all these different kind of things, right? And we quickly talk ourselves right out of it. And then it might be for the fellas, or it might be, if I could just have a girlfriend like that, it'd be good. Right? I think everything would be all right. Or it could be for the ladies, if I could just have a man, a godly man. If I could just get a godly man, everything would be all right. And then you get what you're looking for, and then you start to say, I don't know if I really, maybe I was being a little bit dramatic, right? I thought I wanted this, I was just wrong. And the idea behind those, and we can go on and on and on. If I moved, if I stayed, all these different things that we tried to do in a first step experience, whether we knew that or not, the reality is that when I got the job, or I got the girlfriend, or I moved away, or things came together in my life, no matter how good they were, they didn't compare to what a drink did for me. No matter how pretty she was, no matter how smart she was, no matter how well off she wasn't capable of doing for me what a couple shots would do. A couple shots made it go away. She couldn't make it go away. I can make all the money in the world, tons and tons of money, and get the job and get reared up around that job and be going at it for a couple weeks, get a couple paychecks, and feel good about making the money. There's a part of me that really appreciates that. There's a sense of pride in my work to give my employer a dime for their nickel. And alcoholics, to some degree, we have that edge where we can just go after things. And so we go after it and we succeed for a while until it don't fill the emptiness. The big book's going to talk about that, and we'll talk about that more today, is spiritual malady. And it doesn't work. And you're like, well, what's wrong? There's nothing wrong with the job. It's something wrong with me, that I think the job could fill, a worldly thing could fill a spiritual hole. Right? We're going to talk about that a little bit. I want to read this to you guys. This is one of my favorite pamphlets in Alcoholics Anonymous. This is called A Member's Eye View. There's several pieces of literature in our program that are very well. And some of you guys heard me read this before. But if you've never heard this before, please listen to this. There's a widely held belief in Alcoholics Anonymous that if a newcomer will simply continue to attend meetings, something will finally rub off on you. And the implication, of course, is that the something which rubs off will be this so-called miracle of AA. Now, there is no doubt in my mind that many people in AA accept this statement quite literally. I have observed them over the years. They faithfully attend meetings, faithfully waiting for something to rub off. The funny part about it is that something is rubbing off on them, and that something is death. They sit there week after month after year while mental, spiritual, physical rigor mortis slowly sets in. Now, in my experience, no matter who your sponsor is or what part of AA or what pocket of enthusiasm you might find yourself in, well, I hope you do find yourself in that kind of a deal. But to some degree, alcoholism is so cunning, baffling, and powerful, which I believe to be cunning, baffling, and powerful to be an understatement of how powerful alcoholism is. It's so overwhelmingly manipulative, and it talks to me in my own voice. And it's very believable. And I can reason things out, and they make perfect sense. And it could be a lie. It could be a damn lie. And you hook me up to a lie detector, and I'll pass. Because I believe the lie, because the lie of alcoholism is in my own voice. Right? And so no matter how long you've been sober, to some degree, that quote in the big book where we're not cured of alcoholism, what we have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual, right? You guys know that? To some degree, all of us, if we went around the room and did a census, I could probably come up with 5 or 6 questions that I would say would scare me for you. And what I mean by that is things that you are probably doing in your sobriety that may be putting you at risk for relapse or more untreated alcoholism, which would evidently, ultimately, and lead to relapse. And some of those things I could quickly talk about would be sponsorship, would be number one on that thing. How are you with your nightly review in your 11th step? How are you with your 10th step? What's your position at your home group? Those are some simple questions that I could ask probably any room in Alcoholics Anonymous at any given day. And to some degree, we all will fall short in some of those areas, and it's scary. The reality of that is it's very scary. So you might ask, like, well, what's that have to do with the first step? Well, it has everything to do with the first step, because if I fully concede to my innermost self that I'm alcoholic, that if I admit that I'm alcoholic and that my life is unmanageable, it leaves no room for me to skip those things. Now, we have a God that's of grace, and we should be loving and tolerant of one another by all means. But some of these things, if we're not up on our spiritual condition because we're powerless, then what happens consequently is a slow fade back into untreated alcoholism. And what happens in that deal is usually a relapse doesn't start with not going to meetings and not praying prayers, although it's very, very true. What relapse, or slip, if you will call it, slip being sobriety losing its priority, what usually happens is it starts with a little bit of dishonesty, a little seed, a little nugget, a little untruth that I believe and I start to live my life by, and it starts to make sense, and then my behavior and my actions in life they water that lie to make it become more and more and more real. The next thing you know, I'm looking to my wife or my friends or my job. I'm back to doing the things that I did before I got sober to look for my happiness in my sobriety. And what happens is slowly but surely those things let me down. They let me down, they let me down, they let me down. And then I'm left with nowhere to look other than myself. And then that's a tough turning point. And a lot of people don't make it through that turning point. Usually by that time, alcoholism is so great and untreated that the obsession returns and we drink. And so we see that more often than not. And the latest statistic, I believe, in Alcoholics Anonymous, which is the only program I know of with a success rate for treating alcoholism, unfortunately, the hard truth is that the statistic for sobriety in Alcoholics Anonymous is somewhere there about 6%. It was not very good. It was very poor. So early days in Alcoholics Anonymous, when AA first started, when AA was in its truest and purest form, and the success rate is arguably, and you look in our forwards, the success rate of Alcoholics Anonymous was somewhere around 75%. Do you think if you went to your meetings and your home groups, are you seeing 75% of the new people who come in, are they getting and staying sober? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I think my home group is the primary purpose group, and we believe in our primary purpose, and we believe that the newcomer is the most important, and that we believe that an adequate representation of the program is our responsibility, and we try our very best to do that. And the enemy of that, or the opposition to that, to some degree, is probably, and unfortunately, other meetings, where it's more accepted or more trending to allow a newcomer whose life might be on the line, just take your time. It's okay. You don't have to worry about that now. We'll worry about steps next year, right? You can just, it's just a sad truth. The program was never meant to be that. The big book is very clear that we sought the same escape with all the desperation of drowning men. And so if we were in the cold Lake Erie right now, and you fell in the water, and I threw you a life vest, you wouldn't say, I'm going to wait till tomorrow to get it. You would hurry up and get on the life vest and beg for me to pull you in. I guarantee you would. And so that description, or that, how they describe that representation of how we should be pursuing our own sobriety is very clear. But do we do that? Am I responsible for that? Have I been pursuing the same escape for my alcoholism with all the desperation of a drowning man or a drowning woman? Have I been doing that? Where have I been slacking at that? What parts of my life no one's going to be perfect. The big book is very clear that we don't claim spiritual perfection, but we claim spiritual progress. So perfection is not required. It's not even we don't even think about being perfect at this, But what we really need to consider is that what is required of me is to make progress. Yeah, I am required as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous for my own sobriety and to be helpful to other people. It's contingent on me making progress in my sobriety. What areas in your life are you needing to probably consider making some progress in? If you took a list on the board, if we drew a line right down the middle of that board, and we let everybody write on the board, you kind of get in a big old line, and you come through 2 times. You get 2 times around the room and write your problems on the board. Them problems they'd be similar. Relationships, finances, friendship, it'd all be pretty similar stuff. And as we're in our sobriety, and if we're not focused on our solution, then them problems will continue to grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And to some degree, what it leaves us in is a place of hopelessness, because I can't seem to fix these problems. I can't seem to get over this job or this relationship. I have these unhealthy dependencies on people and places and things, and I can't seem to manage my way out of them. And when I've done all I could do to manage my way out of them, no different than to drink, then it piles up on me, and I have nowhere to go, and I'm hopeless, which makes for more drinking, which makes for more managing. And the old saying is, when I manage, I damage. When I manage my life, I damage my life. And so what's that have to do with the first step? It has everything to do with the first step. The first step, whatever step you can think of right now, you think of 1 through 12, a number, whatever number comes into your mind, has everything to do with the first step. The problem in Alcoholics Anonymous or any 12-step program, whatever 12-step program you pick or whatever, is going to be the same exact scenario, and the scenario will be that the problem is outlined in detail in our first step. Hopefully you understand that. And the solution to that problem will be outlined in the rest of the steps. The problem is outlined in the first step. Steps 2 through 12 will be the solution to that problem. The miracle and overwhelming power of God is represented in, while we think that my problem is alcoholism, that the rest of, in focusing on the solution in steps 2 through 12, all these other different areas of my life start to become fruitful. They start to become full. They start to become healthy. They start to become whole. I start to be happy. I start to have joy. I start to have a relationship with God. Things don't seem to be so bad no more. I feel I have purpose. And all these different things start occurring in that process is what's something that we never considered would happen by coming to Alcoholics Anonymous. We just came here, usually, I just want to stop drinking. I just want to stop doing whatever I'm doing, and then everything will be okay. And that brings up a whole nother kind of a deal. There are different kinds of alcoholics, and the big book talks about these 5 different types, but I'm going to talk about 2 different types. The 2 different types of alcoholics I want to talk about here is this. There's a type of alcoholic who's really an alcoholic that once he stops or drinking or she stops drinking, their problems seem to go away. They seem to be pretty good. They can go through life, they can go to work, they have decent relationships, they're healthy in most respects. As soon as they put the plug in the jug, then life seems to be pretty good for them. But then there's another type of an alcoholic, which I tend to be, is that my problem seems to start as soon as I put the plug in the jug. Everything seems to get worse for me. And the reason why that is because alcohol is not my problem, alcohol is my solution. And so I don't want to exclude anybody in here. By all means, if you're the type of alcoholic where you just stop drinking, everything seems wonderful and hunky-dory and great, I tip my hat to you, and I wish I was like that, but it's not my scenario. My scenario is when I quit drinking, everything seems to get worse. My thinking gets worse, my relationships get worse, everything just piles up on me and squeezes in on me and makes life impossible. And it has a lot to do with the unmanageability of our first step, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. Okay, so this first step reads, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Does anybody have a problem with that? Well, the problem I have with it, I'll tell you, is that given the right circumstances, I could admit to anything. That drinking and sober. Put me in the right situation, around the right consequences, or in the right atmosphere, it's quite easy for me to admit to anything. I could admit that I was guilty if I was going to get out of jail, right? You've been charged with so-and-so, theft or whatever. Well, I really didn't do it. Well, if you say you did it, you can get out of jail today. Well, okay then, I'm guilty, right? Do you see what I'm saying? Given the right circumstances, if it benefits me in any way, I can admit to damn near anything. She'll come home, okay, I'll admit to whatever, right? I get her to come home. Once I get her to come home, then I can wiggle my way through whatever I got to wiggle through, right? But I admitted it just on situationally. I admit things in my life, and I've been doing that for my whole life since I was a child, right? It's easy for me to manipulate that idea in the first step that I admit that I am powerless. I admit I'm powerless for sometimes 3 or 4 times in one day, right? Powerless. That's why I did it. I want to do it again, right? And so that's why the big book kind of cleans that up on page 30, and it says this, and we've read it before. It says, we had to fully concede. It's quite a different language. We had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. That's quite a bit different language than we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. I would believe that if more people, and I'm not the judge of this, and I certainly say that I'd say it's my opinion based on my experience. How about that? I really believe that most people, that our sobriety success rate would go up if more people knew why they were powerless. I really believe that. For years and years and years, I came to AA, whether through the treatment center or from the detox, or every once in a while I'd get a notion on my own to come to an AA meeting because I was drinking too much or whatever. And I would come here and I knew how to blend in because I'm desperately apart and I'm desperately separate from everything. I don't feel connected to nothing. So I know how to play the game to fake a connection because I really don't know what it's like to feel connected. So I've learned to fake it and manipulate it. And so I can come here and I can speak your language. My name's Mike and I'm alcoholic. My name's Mike and I'm powerless, and memorize a couple big book quotes and this and that, and I could be a part in that way, but I really don't understand what's going on. And so for years and years and years, I had the same experience as many of you, and that experience would be that I said that I was powerless over alcohol because of my outside circumstances. I said I was powerless over alcohol because I went to jail. I said I was powerless over alcohol because I lost my driver's license. I said I was powerless over alcohol because she left me. I said I was powerless over alcohol because she came back. I said I was powerless over alcohol because I was on probation or because I lost my job or whatever. And I've done that over and over and over again. I said my life was unmanageable because of those same circumstances. And to some degree, I bundled all my first step, which is a very vital 3 kind of a thing, I bundled it up into outside circumstances, and what would happen would be a couple things. One would be I would come here and pray your prayers and hang out with you and share the joy of your sobriety, and it'd rub off on me just enough for my life, my outside circumstances, to get a little bit better. Not my inside circumstances. My outside stuff would start to seem to get better. Get the driver's license back, paid my reinstatement fee, had a job for a whole month. And then my outside circumstances would start getting better. And the problem with my sobriety and my powerlessness being based on my outside circumstances is as soon as my outside circumstances started to get better, there went my powerlessness. Now I don't need to go to the meetings as much. Now I don't have to call my sponsor. Now I don't have to tell them when I'm thinking crazy stuff and when I'm afraid and when I'm resentful and fearful and these different things. Now it loses its priority because my powerlessness went away because my outside circumstances got better. And it's a deadly trap. And it's a testament to how cunning, baffling, and powerful alcoholism really is. And so the big book, probably 2/3 or somewhere thereabouts, at least half, more than half, of our literature in our program of Alcoholics Anonymous in the big book is dedicated to the problem. It's dedicated to the problem. I think there's 3 or 4 chapters. There's 4 chapters dedicated to the first step of Alcoholics Anonymous. And the rest it kind of goes through. You know, so 6 and 7 have a paragraph or 2, which are huge steps. And so why would our founders in our program dedicate so much energy and so much literature and chapter and paragraph and chapter and paragraph and description and here's an experience here and here's another experience of this, and giving us over and over and over ideas and considerations to consider what's making me powerless? It's not so that we can, as sponsors, go to the new guy because we're busy and say, "Hey, you believe you're powerless?" And they say, "Yeah," and then we just skip them on through. It's so that we can help them to identify, so we can have an adequate representation of the program so that they can have one too. The idea that I have this physical allergy, this mental obsession, and a spiritual malady are what make up alcoholism, and we're going to describe it on the board like we always do. But without that information, in my opinion, you're staying sober on grace. And because God is good, He'll give us time. But the hopelessness that's required, the 12 and 12 would say, until I admit complete defeat, my sobriety is precarious. And precarious, I looked it up just because I thought I knew what it meant. It says precarious. Now, for those of you who may have been who are in this room who have been sober for a while, and this does not necessarily exclude the new people, but I want you to think of this, if you've been sober for a while, I want you to think of this as your state of being right now. Precarious describes a state of being dangerously insecure, unstable, or uncertain, often implying a high risk of failure, collapse, or falling. I mean, ain't that a great description of untreated alcoholism? How we feel in these different areas of my life, my relationships, my money, the kids, the car, the bills, everything's piling up on me and I don't have no security around none of it. Everything seems to be precarious. Now it says that we know that little good can come from any alcoholic who joins AA unless he has first accepted his devastating weakness and all its consequences. Until he so humbles himself, his sobriety, if any, will be precarious. Of real happiness, he will find none at all. Proved beyond doubt by an immersed experience, this is one of the facts of AA life. The principle that we shall find no enduring strength until we first admit complete defeat is the main taproot from which our whole society is sprung and flowered. Now, it would be quite easy for me to read that. This neck brace is driving me nuts. Some of you guys know it's got me sweating. I'm sorry. I'll have it. I want to look around. It's hard. So the idea that I could read that paragraph and think that that has only to do with my drink and my first step is very shallow. The program is 800 feet deep at least. That paragraph is talking about my life. It's talking about my whole life. It says I will find no happiness. Of real happiness, he will find none at all. So think about, I want you to consider, especially for the people who's been sober for a while, and some of the areas in your life where you might not be very happy. Maybe you're just not happy at all. Maybe you're miserable. Maybe you're miserable and you're acting like you're happy. Maybe you know how to put on a good face because you've been to enough meetings, right? We've been there. I've been there. I've done it. I've gotten hit new bottoms sober several times. We don't have to, though. In this same chapter, it's going to talk about different kind of bottoms, right, where we can get away from this. This first step has everything to do with all the rest of the steps, and it has everything to do with all of my life. It has everything to do with it. What part of your program are you willing to compromise? What honesty are you willing to compromise? What fear are you willing to keep to yourself to try to save face? What resentment are you unwilling to let go of? What dishonesty are you carrying around inside of you? The big book is very clear about those things, and we'll talk about them more later, I promise you, but those are alcoholism Adjectives 101. That is my alcoholism. It's manifesting itself. My selfishness is going to manifest itself in resentment and fear, dishonesty. It's going to come out in those ways. And if I don't deal with those things, I can't deal with them on my own just as much as I'm powerless, and so are you. And so it gives me a simple outline of how to deal with these things. And if I take care of them on a regular basis, daily, then I seem to have a fruitful and happy and joyful life, and things seem to go well. As soon as I divert from this program, as an alcoholic like me, as soon as I divert from this plan or this agenda or program, then things pile up. And it's not like I keep a resentment to myself or a fear to myself, and all of a sudden I grow into this crazy place where I'm too afraid to admit to you that I'm afraid of something. What happens is usually it's not that big a deal. I'll be all right. I'll call later or tomorrow. And then you keep it, and then it kind of loses its steam a little bit. Then you pushed it down deep inside of you. The big book talks about that too. These things don't go away. We stuff them, and they're in there. And then what happens with a fear or resentment or any of those things, they multiply. One fear turns into 2, turns into 4, turns into 8, turns into 16. Same thing with resentment. And what happens is if I'm not taking care of those things, why would I take care of those things in the face of possibly, in my mind, this is going to embarrass me? I'm going to be embarrassed if I tell my friends I'm scared of this. I'm going to be embarrassed or ashamed of myself if I admit that I'm resentful, because that's what alcoholism will trick me to think. Why would I do it? Why would I do it with everything in my mind, my alcoholic mind that whispers me sweet nothings in my own voice? Why would I confess or admit or ask God to remove the things that I'm ashamed of? Because the only reason I'm probably going to do that is because I'm powerless. I'm powerless over alcohol, and my life is unmanageable. And if you have a real good, solid, heartfelt conceding of this first step, it will help you through the rest of your sobriety. And sometimes, like we do these workshops once or twice a year, so that we're reminded of these things, because we all get off base. And the idea that we're going to have this experience here at this workshop this year, and it's going to cover me next year, is not the truth. You'll learn some things here, and you'll get better here. We all will. But alcoholism is so cunning, baffling, and powerful. It will use the spiritual tools that I use here in this program against me to do the same thing that got me sick in the first place. And if I try to do this thing alone, I'm doomed. Of myself, the big book, the literature would say, of myself I am nothing, the Father doeth the works. The first step, the first word in the first step is we. We admitted we were powerless. I cannot do this on my own. I need other people, right? And we're going to have a talk today about the first tradition, which I think that any talk in Alcoholics Anonymous, my sponsor taught me this. He taught me a lot of this stuff. Is that any talk that leaves out the tradition is inadequate. Any AA talk that leaves out our traditions is inadequate. And it's very important. So we're going to have some tradition. In this workshop every week, we will have a tradition talk. And so hopefully you may have some questions around those things, and hopefully you'll understand how that comes to life with our step work. It's vitally important. Any questions? Comments? Nothing? Okay. On page 20 it says, on the top it says, you may have already asked yourself, why is it that all of us became so very ill from drinking? Doubtless you are curious to discover how and why, in the face of expert opinion to the contrary, we have recovered from a hopeless condition of mind and body. If you are an alcoholic who wants to get over it, you may already be asking, what do I have to do? So that you could turn that into a question. You may be sober for several years or a year or two, or maybe you're in the first few months. Maybe that's a good question to ask yourself, like, what do I have to do? How do I have a new experience? And so if you're an alcoholic like me, some people will go to the bar and they'll sit down at the bar stool and they'll sit at that same bar stool for hours and hours and hours, and they'll just sit there and drink till the bar closes. Anybody in here drink like that? Okay. Some people, now let me give you some people will go to the bar, sit down and get a drink, then they'll get up and start playing pool, then they'll get a couple more drinks, then they'll start throwing darts, then they'll get a couple more drinks, then they'll flirt and put some music on the jukebox, then they'll get a couple more drinks, and they did everything there is in that bar, and they're out of there looking for something else. How many are like that? And so if you're a drinker, if your alcoholism has manifested itself in that way, where that's not enough for you just to sit at the damn stool, then what makes you think that you can just come here and just sit at the stool? It's not going to be satisfying for you. You may have a spiritual emptiness or malady that's so empty and big, you just need more God, which actually that's a huge blessing. It's a huge blessing. My sponsor would say that God, just no different than there's a seed in all the fruit to become like what it came from. That same seed that God puts in the fruit puts into us. So we have a desire to be like what we come from. And so for a lot of us, that means we need a lot of God. And nothing but a lot of God will do. All right? Nothing but a lot of God will do. And it's crazy because our selfishness and our human condition will fight against the very thing that helps us and saves us. It'll fight and tell me lies and will pull out all the tricks of the trade and to get me to not have that relationship. And that's why we say things like one day at a time. Just for today. Daily reprieve. We have all these lingos that helps us to stay focused on that because there's no other way in my experience to be able to have that relationship at that magnitude or that effectiveness without doing it just simply one day at a time. It's too much to ask me. I'm too lazy, I'm too busy, I'm too crazy to be able to do that for a week at a time. I got to do that one day at a time. Make sense? And so if you go back to the doctor's opinion, and we look on page, I don't know what it would be for everybody. If you all have a fourth edition, it'd be XXVIII. It says, we believe, and so suggested a few years ago, that the action of alcohol on these chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy. That the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. These allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all. And once having formed the habit and found they cannot break it, once having lost their self-confidence, their reliance upon things human, their problems pile up on them and become astonishingly difficult to solve. So, obviously, this is talking about the phenomenon of craving, the allergy to alcohol, and we're going to describe that on the board here in a minute. But when you come to this idea that any form, what's that mean to you? Corey? Good. Anybody else? What's any form to you? Some people are going to say vodka, Budweiser, Hennessy, schnapps. Some people are going to say cocaine, meth, bulbs. Any form. I mean, it's fill in the blank there, you guys. I mean, we're going to quickly, we're going to help everybody to identify here, but it's important that, like, any form. You got your hand up? Jamie? No? So ask yourself, what's that mean to you? Like, what's any form? And do you know that the allergic reaction to alcohol, this idea that once I start to drink, I cannot control the amount I take, right? This allergic reaction is what the big book would describe it as. That does not happen to people who do not have alcoholism. Did I say that right? People who do not have alcoholism do not develop a phenomenon of craving. Now, there are some very hard drinkers that would seem that way. They drink to oblivion on a regular basis. They can drink with me, just the same amount as me. But as soon as they put the drink down, everything seems to be better for them. That's not my scenario, you see. There's this allergy to alcohol, and the big book says it interests us. Does this allergy to alcohol interest you? Do you guys know what the allergy is? I know a lot of you guys in here that sponsor, for sure, I know you guys know what it means. And maybe if you've been to these workshops before, you would probably understand too. But to some degree, I'll write it on the board. This allergy, I'm sorry for my writing. What is the allergy to alcohol? If you know some of my guys. Bill? Okay. How about TJ, what do you think? What's the allergy to alcohol? Yeah. Good, good. How about who's new? If you're not under, okay. What about you? What do you think? That's good. Some people are going to, that's a good one, man. I'm going to use that anyway. Some people would say, I'm allergic to alcohol. As soon as I drink, I break out handcuffs. Sounds legit, right? Happens to most of us. What about this? I'm allergic to alcohol. As soon as I drink, I break out in a crack pipe. Right? I'm allergic to alcohol. As soon as I drink, I break out in a spoon or whatever the hell you do. Right? Makes sense. But that's not what the allergy, that's not what they're talking about. But it's good for fun. But that's about it. Anybody else? Go ahead.
It's a damaging immune response to the body from a substance, and the allergy kicks in the phenomenon of craving and the obsession.
That's absolutely correct. Anybody else? So let me ask a couple questions. When the alcoholic and a non-alcoholic, if you got a non-alcoholic here and an alcoholic here, who has the ability to digest more alcohol, the alcoholic or the non-alcoholic? Alcoholic? Who said non? Who said alcoholic? Who said the opposite? The alcoholic has the inability to digest alcohol. The alcoholic who's made up bodily, this is a big book will say, bodily and mentally different from our fellows, the alcoholic has an extremely difficult time digesting alcohol. And so what happens when an alcoholic drinks alcohol and puts alcohol into their system, big book would say in any form, something happens. What happens is the alcohol goes into my digestive system. My digestive system says, I can't process this. I don't have the ability to digest this alcohol. The average rate that a human being, a non-alcoholic, can digest alcohol is at the rate of about 1 ounce per hour. And a lot of you guys have been in IOP classes. Some of you guys have been in tons of them. Would know they'd say that every one. Average human being digests alcohol at the rate of about 1 ounce per hour, and that's true. The alcoholic body is not capable of digesting alcohol at that rate. It has an extremely difficult time. So when I, as an alcoholic, drink alcohol into my system, it goes into my digestive system. My digestive system says, can't process it. It has an extremely difficult time. I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to go to school for this or nothing like that. This is just facts. These are facts from our big book and from our literature that you can look up for yourself. What happens is my body cannot digest the alcohol, and so my body, because it's fearfully and wonderfully made, releases a chemical into my bloodstream. The chemical is called acetaldehyde. When acetaldehyde is released into my bloodstream, which is an allergy, because an allergy by definition is an abnormal reaction to something normal, right? You guys with me? When that chemical is released to my bloodstream and it goes to my digestive system, it helps break down the alcohol and I pass it, right? It works, but that is an allergy. The problem with that chemical being released into my bloodstream to help me to digest the alcohol is when that same chemical passes through my brain, it triggers a craving beyond my mental control. Does that make sense? So the question in regards to the allergy to alcohol is, what can you do about that? Anybody? That's a good answer to a different question. Right? But Chris is right. There's nothing you can do about it. You cannot change the way that your body digests or processes or metabolizes alcohol. There's not a single thing you can do about it. Therefore, you're what? That's what makes you powerless, you guys. It's not because she left or she stayed or because I got my license suspended. I'm not coming to AA to say I'm powerless because I'm on probation. I'm saying I'm powerless over alcohols because once I start to drink, I cannot control the amount I take. It's one of the reasons. I'm saying I'm powerless because of this, that once I drink, there's nothing I can do about the way that my body is going to digest this alcohol. As soon, one is going to be too many and 1,000 is never enough. It's said over and over and over again, and we come here and we learn it in IOP and we learn it in AA and we hear all these different things, but we don't really know what it means. It makes sense. Yeah, when I drink, I can't control the amount I take, but I think I'm going to. I think it's going to be different this time, right? Which brings us to the mental obsession. Any questions in regards to the physical allergy to alcohol? Anybody? Does that make sense to anybody? Everybody get it? You sure? Okay, the next thing is the mental obsession. What's that? What's the mental obsession? Well, you guys are a lively group today, huh? Say it again. That's right. Can't stop thinking about it.
Obsessions are repeated thoughts, urges, and mental images that are intrusive, unwanted, and make people anxious.
Solid. Good. Dylan?
It's an obsession beyond my mental control.
Good. Chris?
It's like once I take that first drink, I
Not-
can't stop thinking about it. Where am I going to get my next? How am I going to get it? Who am I going to get it from?
Now that's a good, now I'm glad Chris brought that up because I know Chris means well and I know Chris knows the stuff, but I want to give you, there's a couple other things that I want to talk about and I'm going to just say it because and I know I'm recorded, but it is what it is. You can shoot me later. But some of these other programs like Smart Recovery and these different programs are going to combine this this physical allergy and this mental obsession and to make it into one thing, and it's not one thing. It's an error, and if you think that, you're missing out. They're different. So this mental obsession does not happen after I take a drink. It happens when I'm sober. This physical allergy is what happens once I put one in me. I'm not saying that to, I'm just, right on, buddy. But it's vitally important for you to know that you need to be armed with facts about yourself so you can help the new guy. So you can work your 10 steps and your 11 steps and write your inventory and do the things that you're supposed to do for you. And if you're not clear about some of these things, it's going to mislead you. God bless Smart Recovery or whatever they do. God, if it works, whatever. Eating grass, I say that all the time. Eating grass helps you stay sober. I'll go pull the snow and we'll eat grass together. If it'll work for you. I want you to stay sober. I really do. I just don't think it will work. But we'll give it a shot. Right? Bill? Yeah. Yeah, right on. Corey B. and Sammy?
So what you're saying is the phenomenon of craving is different from the mental obsession.
You guys hear that? The phenomenon of craving, what the big book would describe, is completely different than the mental obsession. They're two different entities, if you wouldn't even call them an entity. They're two different scenarios. They're two different, they happen at different times. The phenomenon of craving has everything to do physically. It's a physical allergy. The big book, like we said before, that I'm bodily and mentally different from my fellows. Well, how am I bodily different than my fellows? Well, once I drink, I can't control the amount I take. Why? Why am I not able to control the amount I take? Because I have an allergic reaction. My body does not process alcohol the same way. Right? That happens only after I take a drink. But what happens when you just got out of detox, you've been in for 7 days, or wherever, you went to jail for the weekend, or maybe you dried up over in the basement, and now you're sober. You got a few days sober, and you're like, I'm going to go back to work and call her or whatever I'm going to do. But on the way to go and do that, you cannot get it out of your head. Why is that? What is going on with that? Does anybody know? Dylan? I'm Sam. Sorry, Sam. Good. Okay, Sammy? I skipped Sammy, sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm just kidding. So for me, like with the mental obsession, which ties into that physical allergy, right, is that when I take that first drink, the mental obsession becomes so heavy within me that, I will rob people I love and know that it's wrong, but I can't do it anyways because I have become so powerless over the drink, right? And so, and it's to the point where I'm like crying, doing things I don't want to do, but I have to because I'm so obsessed with my next drink.
Yes.
If I don't, I think I'll die.
Yeah, good. Okay, we got a couple more hands, and then we're going to go. Okay, we got Bo, and Chris, and Russ. Bo?
To my understanding, I thought the mental obsession is like before I take a drink, I'm restless, irritable, and discontented. That's what my obsession looks like.
That's good, good. Chris, and then Russ.
And to piggyback off, Bo, long before I picked up that drink, I was obsessive over it. It was like, before I came to these rooms, I would wake up everywhere wanting that drink, thinking, where am I going to get my first drink? Where am I going to get it from? Who am I going to get it from? All that stuff going on and on and on and on and on and on. And it would be on me so much that I would just get a case of the efficacy and go drink before I got sober. Until now, I thought it was because it happened after I took the drink. But now I know that it was happening long before I picked up that drink.
Right on, good. Russell? That's right. Yes. Yeah. That's good. So my mental obsession has everything to do with my spiritual malady. And in order for us to have an adequate explanation or adequate articulation of this mental obsession, or even to understand why it occurs or why I might be powerless in that way, I have to understand what's going on spiritually inside of me. And so no matter what degree of faith you have, or what you believe or what you don't believe, it's not going to change the truth about the spiritual malady. You can not believe God all you want to not believe in God. It's not my business, it's your business, but it's not going to change the fact that alcoholism is represented by a physical, a mental, and a spiritual dilemma, if you want to call it that. And this spiritual malady is going to be marked in our literature. It's going to say, it's just like you heard before, restless, irritable, discontent. The big book would say, I can't make a living, I'm full of fear, I can't be a usefulness to other people, right? The big book gives those descriptive words. If the people who are not in Alcoholics Anonymous, or with other people maybe at the church would say something like, I have a hole in my soul, right? And if you wanted to expand on this spiritual malady more, you would say, I'm not comfortable in my own skin. No matter where I'm at, I don't feel like I fit in. I feel awkward and out of place. A lot of times, like we said today when we began, is I'm weird. Right? I'm weird. I can't talk to nobody normally. I'm out of place. Everything's strange. Right? And the problem, this spiritual malady, for most alcoholics, not all, this is not a cover-all, but it's a pretty good percentage, have had this spiritual malady going on way before they took a drink. If I look back into my childhood, I can tell you that I was restless, irritable, discontent, full of fear, out of place, strange, felt empty on the inside. I thought everybody else had it. You was able to deal with it different than me, and I tried to deal with it, and what I would do is I was shy, awkward, strange, full of fear. Selfish to the core, not with my stuff, but selfish, and I can't stop thinking about all this. It's just endless, right? And I live that way. So, if I'm in the big book, in this doctor's opinion, it's very powerful how it talks about it. It says this: after a time, the alcoholic cannot differentiate the true from the false. Their alcoholic life seems to be the only normal one. Well, what's that mean? Well, you can interpret that in your own way, by all means. But how I interpret it is this. I have been living with this spiritual malady for so long, since I was a little boy. It's more normal for me to feel restless, irritable, and discontented than it is to me to feel happy, joyous, and free. I've been dealing with this emptiness and this malady or this dilemma of sin that the church would say for so long that it's more normal for me to feel and operate from a place of emptiness than it is for me to operate from a place of wholeness. Yes, you can.
I remember I did this workshop a couple of years ago. I was very new to sobriety, and I had no idea what the hell you were talking about. I had no clue, because I had never, ever in my life felt peace or serenity. I didn't get it. I didn't understand what you meant, because you're right. My whole state of living, my entire life was that.
Yes.
It was restless, irritable, and I didn't even know it. I had no idea. Now I do.
Yeah.
Now that I have some clean time, I can sit in a room quietly and peacefully. Never do that my whole life unless I was drunk.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it.
That's exactly what I'm trying to describe in Mike's language. Most of us alcoholics have been so restless, irritable, and empty on the inside, we got used to it. And so it's impossible, it's very difficult for us to differentiate the true from the false. Right? Because my normalcy, the normal pattern of my life, the normal feeling I have, the normal flow of my life pattern is operated from emptiness. And I got used to it. The problem with walking around restless, irritable, discontent, full of fear, hole in the soul, shy, awkward, strange, weird, is that although I can get used to it as much as I want to, I have a brain. Right? I have a brain. And my brain knows that something is wrong. Right? Although I can fake it and I can act like it and I can put up a good tolerance to the emptiness and I can go about life and fake however I'm supposed to be or do whatever I think that everybody else is doing, and I don't know how to even articulate or to be able to identify this condition that I have that's going on inside of me, my brain knows that something's wrong, because if you took all those words that we described that describe the adjectives of spiritual malady, the one word it most represents is this: I'm miserable on the inside. I'm miserable on the inside day in and day out and day in and day out, and there's nothing I can do to get it away. She won't make it go away. The money won't make it go away. Moving away won't make it go away. Roller coasters won't make it go away, and motorcycles won't make it go away, and I'll trade my motorcycle for a couple drinks because the couple drinks is the only thing that makes it go away. The reality is what alcohol does for us is something that nothing else has been ever able to do for us before. It does something to mask that emptiness. Now, I had a foster mom. Her name was Miss Rosie. Miss Rosie was an angel. She loved me when nobody else did. And she was a Christian woman, probably the best representation of Christianity that I've ever had in my life, a role model of that, and very deeply. And Miss Rosie said this, and this will make sense to you guys, that alcohol and drugs is the devil's impersonation of the Holy Spirit. Right? Doesn't it make sense? Whether you're a Christian or not, you don't got to be, but it should make sense to you, because that's exactly the truth. Mike, you got something? Yes.
So that was my experience, right? When I put a drink or a drug in me, I got that relief. I mean, I finally, it was like the weight of my shoulder. I could breathe, you know what I mean? And that full-blown dialogue that runs in my head, that noise was finally quieted, you know what I mean? So that's what alcohol did for me. It quieted that noise in my head.
Yes. Yeah, the noise in the head is just one of the symptoms of the emptiness. So when I'm walking around day in and day out, and I'm miserable, What happened? Oh.
Another definition of that spiritual malady from what I was taught is it means that our disease is centered in things that are not solid, such as our thoughts, beliefs, and emotions.
Yeah, right on. Yeah. So I'm walking around life restless, I'm irritable, I'm discontented, I'm weird, I'm out of place, I'm shy, I'm awkward, I'm strange. I can't make, nothing seems to really, I just don't, nothing, I could do anything. I remember when I was like a teenager, I couldn't even like go to the amusement parks and ride roller coasters. They were cool, but not as cool as if I was getting high and drinking. Then it was cool, right? And eventually the progression of alcoholism would say that I'm not allowed to do anything that I love to do without alcohol and drugs because it's not even worth it. Because when I'm not really trying to do the things I love to do, what I'm really trying to do is drink. I'm just making excuses to do it. So, back to this mental obsession. My mind knows that I'm miserable. My brain, once again, fearfully and wonderfully made, is dendrites and all these different things, and some of you medical people might understand that. The brain is wired in a certain way that's beyond my comprehension. But my brain knows no different than when I have a cut or a bruise or something happens, it sends the proper things to try to heal. It's trying to make me heal, right? And so when I'm walking around life miserable, day in and day out, the crazy trick about this, and we're going to jump back to it, is that I got used to it. It seems normal to me, but it's not normal. My brain knows it. And so what my mind does to protect me from that misery is to try to bring me to a solution to that misery. And so a lot of times it'll start like this. Sally, a new car, some sex, whatever, money, all these different things. And I'll go be a part of all those things, and it don't work. And it don't work. And all the while, the emptiness is getting greater and stronger and stronger. And then my mind will say this: nothing works, Mike, but I know what does. Go get you a drink. It makes it go away. Just for a little bit. But a little bit is better than nothing. I'm going to go to jail if I drink again. So what? So what? What else are you going to do? Can you stand living this miserable for another second? We'll throw it. It does so much for us, we'll do anything for it. There's nothing else in this world that I know of. Nothing. No love, no sex, no money, no amount of anything, no friends, no approval of other people, no high on the mountain or low in the river. Nothing will make this go away. And the only thing that we, alcoholics, drug addicts, a lot of us, have found to make it go away, the only thing that, well, this is what happens. Twist it up tight. I've been fighting it, white knuckling it. I'm not going to do it again for the 100th time, right? I'm never going to do it again. We said it a million times. And then it's building up and it's building up and it's building up. And then finally I give in. The obsession returns. I can't stop thinking about it. And I get it. And this is what happens. Oh. The sense of ease and comfort, that relief. The relief of what? The relief of this. And so, in regards to this mental obsession, what can you do about the way that your brain is wired to protect you from being miserable? Anybody? What, good. What can you do? Hold on. That's a good answer to a different question. What can you do about the way that your brain is wired to protect you from being miserable? Nothing. Therefore, you're what? Powerless. Boom. You're powerless. And when I say powerless, it's not like you guys will all be able to testify to this. It's not like, oh, it's about 45, 50 degrees outside. I'm miserable as shit on the inside. Maybe I'll go get a drink. It's not like that. It's like, I can't drink again because I've lost my family and I went to jail and I'm going to lose my license and all these different things are going to happen. And we're fighting it because to some degree we know it's wrong. We said we're never going to do it again. Most of us had advanced in our alcoholism to the place of where we have promised over and over and over and over and over again that we're never going to do it again. But now I'm miserable as shit on the inside, and I got nothing that makes it work, and my brain is just obsessing with the drink. I can't think about the kids. I can't think about the wife. I can't think about the job. I can't think about the consequences. All I can think about is the solution to that problem, and that problem is the drink. What can you do about that? Nothing. That's the way that your brain is wired. You're powerless. That's why you're powerless. You're not powerless because she left or because she stayed. You're not powerless because of how long you've been to jail or how long you've been out of jail or how many IOP classes and detoxes you've been to. That has nothing to do with nothing. This is what makes us powerless. This is where this page in the big book where it says we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. When we are identifying with this, we are identifying as alcoholics, and we're fully conceding to our innermost self that we're alcoholics. And what does it say? This is our first step in recovery. This is it. Now, we talked about the spirituality. Restless, irritable, discontent, hole in the soul, weird, awkward, out of place, lots of problems going on. If all those things, if you bear with me, if all those things we talk about are adjectives of a spiritual malady, then the obvious solution would be to fix your spirit. But the problem is, can you see my spirit? Right now, look at me. Can you see my spirit? If you do, we're going to go to different class. Because somebody always says, yeah, I see it. I'm like, well, how do you see it? Can you see your spirit? You can't even see it you can't even look at it. Not with your human eyes. So how are you going to fix it? Anybody? You can't. Therefore, you're what? You're powerless. This is what makes us powerless, folks. Yeah, right on. Any questions with these things?
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
So, most of the time this is happening while I'm drinking, but I think it levels up when I stop. The allergy, the mental obsession, and my spiritual malady become, overwhelming
Yes.
when I get sober,
Mm-hmm.
which is scary, right? So obviously it's vital, like we're talking about, to understand that, but I don't think when I was new, that was even a thought. And it happened after I got sober. I thought that I'm sober, I'm good now.
Yeah.
Most of this talk is mumbo jumbo, I'm good. So it's important for me to understand this because I thought after I got sober, everything would be okay.
Yeah. And Steve brings up a great point, you guys, and I want to hit this one as hard as I can. Because depending on where you go to meetings and depending on who your sponsors are, depending on what lineage of Alcoholics Anonymous you come from, to some degree that is going to be taught. And for some people, that is going to seemingly work. It will for them. And so the tradition would say that our unity is the greatest thing we have. And so for me to get up here and say they're stupid and pieces of shit and they're wrong and all this ain't going to do no good. But what I'm trying to do is say there's different kinds. Right? There's this class and there's this class. The big book will say there's 5. I'm going to say there's 2 for the sake of this workshop. It ain't no good for me to say they're all stupid and wrong because maybe that's the truth for them. I don't know. But I know for me, this is very true. This is what our big book describes. I didn't make this stuff up. I just come up with this out of nowhere. There's definitely levels. There's definitely levels. Depending on how many lines you crossed while you were drinking, it's going to have a lot to depend on what you got to do in your sobriety, absolutely. But the ultimate line is this. What does it get worse for me or better once I quit drinking? If it gets worse, if you're an alcoholic like me and it gets worse for you, then you're in the right place. what our program is describing. We got a Dylan and then Meredith.
It's crazy because like before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous and I was taught this, right? Like I would, when I would drink again or I would do my thing again, like my idea would be, man, why did you do it? And I'd be like, man, like she's giving me a hard time, or the job wasn't working out, or it always. I never like went in and was like, man, this spirituality is really kicking my ass right now. You know what I mean? Like I really need a drink. Like I had no idea that was going on. It was a delusion of other things.
Yeah.
They never always stayed like that. Like things would change, but my drinking never did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was like there was something else. I just didn't know what.
Yeah. Thanks, Dylan. Meredith?
I just want to say thank you because this is the first time I've literally understood, because when I relapsed, it's anxiety, and I always thought, why can't I just like do more affirmations and do this or that? And this is the first time I understand I do not have power over my mental state, that is also powerless in a spiritual malady. So
Yes.
that is like clicked so well for me. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. In our big book, when it gets to the fourth step, it's going to say this. When we straighten out spiritually, then we straighten out mentally and physically as well, in that order. Because if I'm in unfit spiritual condition, if I'm not fit spiritually and I'm miserable on the inside, what's going to happen? My mind's going to obsess with the drink. My mind's going to obsess with the drink, and once I put one in me, I'm going to develop a phenomenon of craving and not be able to control the amount I take. And it's quite the opposite. If I'm in fit spiritual condition, and I'm have a semblance of happy, joyousness, free, and if I'm making progress in Alcoholics Anonymous, in my spiritual well-being, then I'm not going to obsess with the drink. And if I don't obsess with the drink, I'm not going to put one in me. And if I don't put one in me, I won't develop a phenomenon of craving. In that order, every single time, it's as simple as that. It is cut and dry in that way. Some people would say, and I hate to bring it up, but I'm going to, that I got triggers. Some people say if I drive down the road at this time at night, then it's a trigger for me. Is it? I believe, in my experience, is that there's only one trigger. One trigger. Fit spiritual condition. I'm either in it or I'm not. And I'm telling you that it's not that I'm better than nobody or worse than nobody. If anything, I'm a bum alcoholic, for sure. That I've been able to go places and do things like every other human being in the whole wide world that anybody else can do, provided I'm in fit spiritual condition. I've been on some of them bad roads. I've been at the bar getting wings on my motorcycle. I've been on vacation. I've been around people drinking. I've been around all these things, and the problem has been removed. It's the power and the testament to Alcoholics Anonymous and God. And so if I'm walking around life protecting myself, the big book would say any attempt to shield the alcoholic from temptation is doomed to fail. Any attempt to shield the alcoholic from temptation is doomed to fail. Well, that's such a bold statement when alcohol is the problem. It's a testament to the freedom that we receive and we get to experience here as a result of working the 12 steps. It really is. I don't have that problem. I'm not thinking about the drink. Do I get fearful and resentful and weird and all these different things sober? Yes, I do. But I haven't thought about the drink. I've been on medication, broke my back, just got neck surgery, spinal surgery, been on some heavy pills. It didn't bother me none. Not a single bit. Right? The problem has literally been removed from me. Now, if I was not in fit spiritual condition, not going to my home group, not participating in things I do, not sponsoring people, being sponsored by someone, participating in the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I go to that same doctor and I'm on the same medication, I might not be okay. Then the trigger thing might come to life. You see? Last thing I want to talk about, and then we're going to do a tradition, and this thing's, we're about out of time already. This idea that my life is unmanageable, I think this one gets overlooked very, very, very much. My life is not unmanageable because I live in a sober house, because I lost my driver's license, because I'm back on the EBT card, or whatever the hell you could think of, right? A lot of times when you come to Alcoholics Anonymous, most people are going to say that your life is unmanageable, once again, for your outside circumstances. A lot of people are going to let you get away with that, but I'm not. It's not the truth. Okay, the truth is my life is unmanageable because I have a spiritual malady. Right? What do you mean? What does that even mean? That means that to some degree, I'm empty on the inside and I'm craving for something to make it go away, whether I'm sober or whether I'm drunk. When I'm stone cold sober and I'm empty on the inside, what's going to happen is I'm going to reach for her, and I'm going to reach for it, and I'm going to reach for anything and this thing and that thing to try to make it go away. And when I have this condition, this unfit spiritual condition going on inside of me, when I'm supposed to go to work for 8 hours, get off to work, mow the lawn or shovel the snow, wash the dishes, kiss my wife, read my Bible, go to church, whatever the normal things that life may bring for me, those are sometimes life can be enough. But then you add on, I'm restless, I'm irritable, I'm discontent, I'm full of fear, I'm strange, I'm weird. It makes my normal activities in life unbearable. That's what makes my life unmanageable. You see? And we did this thing, this wheel of unmanageability. And if whatever your condition is in here today, I don't know, but a lot of new guys, I'll ask them, especially the relapsers, what's the problem you got going on? And almost always they say, it's her. Or, I don't sponsor no women, but they would be the opposite, I'm sure. He's an asshole, right? And then I'd say, well, why is she the problem? Because she did this. And it'll go around, did this. And I'll say, well, why should she do that? And because of that. And then I keep asking you those questions. With this problem, one of your biggest problems you think is her. And if I keep asking you that question, why? It'll go around, it'll go back to her. You know why it goes back to her? Because it's not the problem. You just think it is. Alcoholism is so cunning, baffling, and powerful. The big book is very clear that it centers in my mind rather than in my body. It'll have me thinking that everything else is the problem, and I'll focus right here. This is the bullseye. This is the problem. I got to work this stuff out. And nothing gets better because it was never the problem in the first place. The problem is this. Fit spiritual condition. If you take your focus off of your problems, whatever or how many they may be, and you focus on a solution, which is in 2 through 12, your problems will get better. I promise with all my heart and soul. So this unmanageability has little or nothing to do with my outside circumstances. It's just a distraction to get me to focus away from what I'm supposed to focus on. I'm salivating because this neck brace is making my mouth close. I'm about to speak in tongues. Everybody understand this? Now I've got a couple more minutes here. This worksheet has got questions on it. They're all from the big book. Everything we're going to give you here is going to be from the big book. This worksheet will take you 10 minutes. All these questions make way more sense when you know this. They make way more sense when you know. If you don't know this, these take on a different shape and form. Because you know this, I know all of you do because we just went over it. This worksheet, I would suggest that you take this worksheet, write out your answers, share them with your sponsor, share them with somebody, share them with me if you want to. Write them out, do them. It'll make way more sense. And in my opinion, in my experience, based on the information that we went over here today, everybody in here, if you're an alcoholic, you were able to identify with alcoholism, and to some degree, already you have fully conceded to your innermost self that you're alcoholic. This is your first step. So in my opinion, to some degree, you have already taken your first step. Right? So this week, I want you to consider what we've talked about in here. I want you to do this. Next week, we're going to go over step 2. We're going to get away from the problem. We're going to get into the solution. Any questions on step 1? Okay, I asked Corey, where is he at, to come up here and talk about, we got 10 minutes, Corey, 5 minutes, to talk about tradition 1. Yeah. Here.
This is big time. No, I'm kidding. My name's Corey, and I'm alcoholic. Thanks for asking me to speak on Tradition 1, Mike. I love that our home group does traditions because I've been in that rooms for the last 15 years, and I knew nothing about traditions. And today they're very important to me because it kind of shows me how to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I love that we're doing this during the workshop. But let me find tradition one. I'm going to read the long form, and then I'll just speak my experience on it real quick. Tradition one, the long form. Each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is but a small part of a great whole. AA must continue to live, or most of us will surely die. Hence, our common welfare comes first, but individual welfare follows close after. When I read that, I think the biggest thing that comes to my mind is that I have to protect the very thing that got me sober in the first place. I have to protect the rooms of AA, my home group. So, when I come into the rooms, I have to show up, and that's why we have these group conscious things. But when I show up and I do service, it keeps the room for the newcomers, I didn't come in here because people weren't showing up and weren't doing service work, And I think another big thing in my experience is we have to keep like the gossip and the drama and all those things out here, like our personal opinions and everything. Because in my experience, I've been a part of that. I've gone to home groups that I've been part of, and we get divided by like doing these gossip things and talking drama and like having these little cliques, and it completely divides the group. And I've seen home groups and meetings get completely destroyed out of it. And it doesn't help the newcomer whatsoever, So I feel very responsible for that. And I think another one of the biggest thing is like, for my home group here, my sponsor Mike up here is very big on it, and he's taught me a lot with it, is there is no sacrifice too great for my home group. That goes anywhere, I get invited to a baseball game, or a Cavs game, and like, oh my gosh, I want to go, but my home group's there. I have to show up. It is so vitally important because this group was here for me. If I'm not here to show up and we start doing those things, AA will fall apart. Our meeting will fall apart. So I think it's very, very important, and, I've been guilty for that, but I've learned over the time that I have to be here for the newcomers. And I really think tradition one is so important for that, and it really hits home on that. And that the common welfare comes first, and then it says, but individual welfare follows close after. So to me, what this looks like is if I take care of AA as the common welfare for it first, I will be taken care of. And it's simple as that for me. If I don't do that, I won't stay sober. So it's so important for me. And I know that there's super important things that happen on home group night, but I can surely tell you if we don't show up to these places, we won't even have those things in the future. Mike, you want to kind of follow up on any of that, or? Thank you.
Our common welfare comes first, everybody. We're so used, it's counterintuitive to who we are. We're selfish and we're self-centered to the core. It's all about Mike. And so this idea that I work the steps and become a little bit unselfish is proven in my traditions. Does the common welfare, ask yourself that question. Does the common welfare, especially starts at a home group, does the common welfare of your home group come before your personal agenda? That's something you don't have to answer. Think about it. What home group are you a part of? Is your home group helping new people? Are you a part of that? Are you putting it before your agendas and your ideas and what you want to do and what time you want to be there and what you got going on? Is it more important? And so the traditions is going to demand some unselfishness. And so that tradition, my common welfare comes first. That principle can be applied at home. Does the common welfare of my marriage come before my work? Does the common welfare of my marriage come before my friendships or my hobbies or my things that I love to do? Does the common welfare of the job? I'm an employee at this place. Does the common welfare of the agenda of the job come before my personal agenda? I want to take lunch at 11, but they don't want me to go till 12. Well, the common welfare comes first. And see, just like Corey said, and he hit it right on the head, is if I take care of AA, or I take care of my marriage, or I take care of my job, then my job and my marriage and AA will take care of me. When we get down on our knees and we say, God, I offer myself to thee, we're no longer our own business anymore. So we give ourselves to these things, which is counterintuitive to us, and God takes care of us. Cool? All right, let's pray it out. Good meeting.